Mr. Chairman, the answer is very simple in one word: the mismanagement of the economy by the Akufo-Addo administration. Because a lot of the increases, you know, Ghana Post pays a lot of airlines for the transporting of the parcels that we send to Europe and the United States, and we pay that in dollars. So when you saw the mismanagement when Ken Ofori-Atta, Abina, and co were at the finance ministry, and Dr. Bawumia in charge of the economic management team, you then saw that...
Respectfully, Minister, I mean, stop it right there. Just go straight to your question and answer, and don't be name calling. You understand? Minister, please answer the question. Oh, when this was there, Oh, Minister, I don't think that is how we should be here. You are here, you have been here before. I have been where you are before. Let's just go straight to the point.
I'm guided, Chairman.
Thank you.
So in 2023, when the CD depreciated, you realize that because we're paying in dollars, if you were paying a fee of $100 to an airline and the exchange rate was 8, our expenditure would have been 800 cedis. And then when it went to 16 in 2023, you then have the challenge that your expenditure now becomes 1,600. So that's what accounted for that. So it's the forex losses, you know, yeah. But I'm sure that when you see the 2025 financials, you realize that even though we are doing more volumes, our expenditure would have dropped, because now with a better, stronger CD that's trading very favorably, you realize that our forex expenditure will be better.
Thank you. For the total amount of $6 million with interest at the prevailing Bank of Ghana rate from Smart Infraco, failing which remedies as stipulated in the contract should be activated. Minister, what says you?
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, this contract actually started in 2015 when I served on the board of the National IT Agency. In fact, Madam Rita Sraha, who is today Managing Director, was also on the board at the time when that board approved for the then MD to engage Libara. The contract was not consummated before we left office in 2016, and the Akufo-Addo government took the decision to sign with Libara in 2018. The terms of the contract are as you have read out in the Auditor General's report. However, we have been appraised of addendums to the original contract. Addendums which have sought to alter the letter and spirit of the original contract. The original contract was for Libara Ghana, a private company, to commercialize the excess capacity of NITA, the National IT Agency. There had been about $300 million worth of investment by the John Mahama I administration. And so we asked that the infrastructure of NITA should be commercialized, and there should be a profit sharing between the private entity and NITA. However, we were very clear that it should be on new business. So NITA already had a number of government agencies as its client. That business was supposed to be exempt from this commercialization because this new entity was not going to be bringing in this new business. But for example, on the Eastern Corridor Fiber, you had 48 core, and at that time we were using less than 6 core. And so to commercialize the rest of the infrastructure, we said we needed a private vehicle to do this. There were 120 LTE base stations which we thought could be commercialized. Mr. Chair, or Madam Chair, it's become evident to us that there have been 2 addendums that have changed the contract, handed over fully the entire government infrastructure to this private entity. In fact, an SPV was set up called Smart Infraco that took over all rights of Libara Ghana. Now, I have referred this to the Attorney General for his advice, and so, but the issues we have raised for the Attorney General to advise us on is that the terms of the original contract stated that Libara could not assign more than 20% of their rights to a third party. Now, the current situation is an SPV has been set up called Smart Infraco that has taken over 100% of Libera's rights. The other issue that arises is the fact that when we took over the ministry and there was the need to change passwords for some government agencies, it became clear to me, and unfortunately my Director General for NITA is not here, he's a bit under the weather. NITA had no access to the National Data Center.
Minister, you mentioned that the terms had changed in one breath, and in another breath you also said that they had also amended the main contract. So isn't the change of terms, wasn't it as a result of the amendment of the original contract?
Exactly so, Madam Chair. But again, I leave this for the advice of the Attorney General and the lawyers, that you cannot alter the terms of a parent contract in such a manner that vitiates the intent of the original contract. Because the original contract said you could not assign more than 20%. Now you have a situation where you've done an addendum that has taken over the entire rights and handed them over. So again, that's a question for the lawyers to determine if that is legally right and permissible by our laws. But the change in the terms are on the basis of that addendum. Now the question is, against the spirit and letter of the original contract, is that admissible? The fact that it was signed, is it legally tenable? And is that's a matter for the Attorney General that we've written to. But like the point I was making was, when we took over office and when I was appointed in February 2025, we realized that NITA, the National IT Agency, had absolutely no access to the National Data Center, and for them to be able to effect the changes, they needed to make a request to the private entity, Smart Infraco. That I called the meeting immediately and requested for a meeting, and now NITA has root access to the National Data Center and has fiscal access as well to the data center. On the issue of the 6 million, that was part of the original contract. Now my understanding from the briefings we've received is that Smart Infraco says they spent money doing rectification of the infrastructure that they acquired. And for that reason, they are offsetting it against what was supposed to be deliverables to NITA. My position as minister has been clear. You have an obligation under the contract, meet those obligations. Pay the $6 million to NITA. Then submit your claims for any rectifications that you did. Let that be authenticated and verified. And then let's see the terms of the contract. Did the terms of the agreement say that you were supposed to take the infrastructure in situ the way it was? Or were you supposed to take it and rectify it at the expense of the state? Those are questions that need to be settled. So this 6 million is owed the state, and we've written to the Attorney General to advise us on the steps to reclaim this $6 million. But Mr. Chair, the last point I will make is that I believe that this matter is of grave national importance, because the infrastructure we talk about is our national data center. That's where all our critical assets sit. As we speak, the country is aware of what's going on with the Ministry of Health and the LIMS contract. Mr. Chair, the Ministry of Health has reached out to us to provide some support for the stopgap measure they want to do. Now, we are being told that that contract, which is not being, or this service that we are going to render from the National Data Center to the Ministry of Health, must be signed with this private entity and payments made to the private entity. And so I have written officially to the Director General of NITA, instructing him to engage the Ministry of Health directly and not through the private entity, because the asset is the property of the Ghanaian people, paid for in full by the Ghanaian people with our taxes, and this is another government agency we are offering services to. If any payments will be made, it will be made to NITA directly. The terms of the contract must be that Smart Infraco should go and bring new contracts and new jobs and share revenue, and not that they sit back and then our government asset has been handed over to a private entity and they are commercializing it and taking all the revenue. This is what I inherited, and this is what we're trying to fix.
Well, thank you very much, Minister. I can understand the explanations you are giving to this committee. Our concern has to do with public funds that ought to come to the public. Whatever you are suggesting sounds to me like a policy direction that you want to undertake. When the report came before this committee, we wrote to the companies involved, and they have also given us their response. But just so we are all on the same page and we do not take this thing so lightly, I want to read to you that per the report from Smart Infraco, they claim that clause 6 required that Smart Infraco restored all infrastructure within 12 months using its own capital. They also claim in clause 6.4 that the company was allowed to deduct capital expenditure, direct cost, and taxes before calculating revenue share. And in clause 12 of the same report, it also states that there was a second addendum which overrides the original contract in case of inconsistencies. And I seem to understand your concern with changes in contracts and all of that. But with a few contract law that we've learned, this is a clear case of novation. One company, one private company moving to the other. Because they are not here, and because it also involves some legal documents and all of that, that is why we're also reading to you the response that they have given to this committee. So I want to find out from you if you have an idea of what the company is saying, and that the clauses that they claim, especially clause 6 and 12, are contained in the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I've just pulled out the contract, and I'm going to read the original contract, the parent contract. I'm going to read clause 4, and the heading for 4 is cost and risk. 4.1 says, save the procurement of an irrevocable bank guarantee or letters of credit. Libara Ghana shall undertake the obligations of this contract project at its own cost and risk. So now this means that whatever cost was supposed to arise out of the execution of the contract, this is clearly stated here, and like you said, contract law, clause 4.1, would be at the instance of Libara Ghana, the parent company, the company that we signed the contract with. So, you see, we need to be minded as public office holders that whilst we want to support private business, we cannot do it at the expense of the Ghanaian taxpayer. So if the original contract says that any cost and risk associated with the execution of this contract is at the expense of the private party, and then a minister takes a decision to vary that in an addendum and say that she's transferring that cost and risk from the private entity to the Ghanaian taxpayer, there must be proper justification for same. Unless you show me what it is, I, as minister, with the evidence available to me, still hold the view that whatever was agreed in the parent contract, which is the 6 million we're talking about here for the first 5 years, should be paid to the tax kitty. If there are any conversations to be had about whether there's an addendum that has shifted liability for cost, we can then have that conversation. But to deprive the taxpayer of this anticipated revenue on the back of a policy directive, I think may be problematic.
See, Minister, we are not here to want to defend any past government official, and I can understand. I mean, once the new government takes over, there's a new direction, and from how you speak, we realize that probably maybe you would want NITA to take a different direction with respect to this contract. But once the state has a contract with some parties, I can see the original contract, which was signed somewhere in 2018 with Libara, is what you are making references to. But I also want to bring to your attention that in 2020, this same contract was novated to Smart Infraco Limited. And this was with approval of all parties. And of course, in terms of contracts, addendums and variations are always, they come in. I mean, we can vary a contract subject to the fact that all parties have come into a certain agreement. And I also know that you are aware, because we have with us a due diligence report that was conducted by Tata Communications Limited, and we've been provided with that report, and I'm sure it's going to help us moving forward. But so that you know that addendums in contracts are not illegal. They are not unlawful. It happens every day in contracts. And so let's speak to what exactly we have that got varied along the line, along the value chain in this contract. And I think that it will help the committee. Thank you very much.
I must also admit that in the response that they gave to us, Smart Infraco admits that they owe. So it is not like they are not acknowledging that they owe government. From their report, the report that they gave to us on page 5 of 8, it says that Smart Infraco acknowledges the outstanding amount of $1 million, in addition to a balance of $162,518, and which has been featured in the accounts and submitted to the ministry. So there is some liability that they themselves have acknowledged. But from what I read from their reports, that the addendum necessitated a change in the advance payment. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But from what I have read, they are saying that the addendum that they made to the original contract, the variation that they made to the original contract, necessitated a change in the advance payment. But you can correct me if I'm wrong. But this is what is in front of him. But you can correct me if I'm wrong, Minister.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, you are absolutely correct that that is the position of Smart Infraco. But that's why I started by saying that this is not about what Sam George's position is or what Smart Infraco's position is. It's about what the position of the law is. Nobody has said that addendums to a to a contract are illegal. I have never made that claim here. Addendums are part of the legal process of contracting. However, the question we're raising is that when addendums change substantially what the original contract was, we have chosen to subject that to the Attorney General's advice. And that's why I'm saying that if today you have a report which we are not privy to, the document you reference as a response from Smart Infraco to the committee, we haven't seen at the ministry. But if in that they admit some liability, it comes back to support my initial submission and position that the 6 million ought to be paid to the states. When that is paid to the state, they can make whatever claims, because let's not forget, the claims are now being made on the back of the addendum. Not because the parent contract says that all the cost and risk should be borne by the private entity. Now they are saying that the addendum allows for them to move that liability to government. Because that's why they are saying that they don't owe 6 million. The cost that they claim they spent in rectifying the infrastructure is the reason why, in their response to you, I want to believe they are saying that liability is not 6 million, but 1 million and about 160,000, if I heard you right, Madam Chair. And so that's why I'm saying that claim must be submitted. That claim cannot be made by the private entity and then say that we have decided that government owes us this, so we are deducting it from government's money and this is what we will give. No, that power does not rest with a private entity.
As for that one, I agree with you 100%.
Thank you. And so the point is
that we should validate the costs that they claim they charge, the profits that they earned, and then to find out truly if that was so. And then we can make progress and see where they owe us and then they need to pay, or where, I mean, we need to offset them with one thing or the other. But truly, I understand that we need to validate the cost involved.
That's the point of the ministry.
I have gone through the reports myself, and then in a couple of, in certain years, you see the revenue and then you see the costs. They charge the costs that they said they have incurred to the revenue, and we end up, when I say we, I mean government ends up owing them some money. So it is, in the light of all that is happening, I strongly believe that yes, we should validate all the costs that they charge to the revenues that came in, and where they ought to pay, they pay. And so as for we validating those terms, and in terms of the costs that they applied to the revenues after the addendum or the renewal, the tweaking of the contracts, I believe that we should look at it and put it in perspective. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm happy that we are in agreement that there needs to be a validation of the claims, and then we on the back of that decide how to proceed. But bottom line is, so long as there is an obligation to the state, that must be met. Because if you don't meet that, then as the auditors have indicated, we will begin to charge interest at prevailing bank rates because you are holding government revenue. So it's best that they submit what is owed to the state whilst we do the validation. Because if the longer they hold it, to settle the Auditor General, we would have to surcharge them the interest on the monies that they are holding at the prevailing bank rate.
Yeah, thank you. But, Minister, are you able to provide this committee copies of the original contract, the various variations that happen along the value chain, I mean, i.e. the various addendums, the first one and the second one, so that we can run that alongside the response that they gave us and the due diligence, so that the committee can arrive? We need those documents from you. Can you assure the committee of these documents?
Madam Chair, if I'm a minister for digital technology, if you would allow me apply digital technology, I can actually send it to you electronically right now.
We will be very
before
grateful.
I rise from the chair.
We'll be very
you can have the secretariat print. So I'm just going to forward it to Madam Chair and yourself immediately.
Thank you.
You see, honorable members, what we need to look at is what the auditors recommended. So whether there's been a change here or there, what the auditors are saying is Smart Infraco owes 6 million. Pay the money, and then afterwards we'll look at anything else that they have. Now the second question. Okay, OPK, then ask your second question. Okay, hold on. Hold on.
The minister has just sworn an oath. He cannot ask questions. You are disrupting our meeting.
Honorable, you are a member of, you are a very good, you are a solid member of this committee. We appreciate that. But you just took an oath. Okay. And that, yes.
You just took an oath.
So, initially, your minister wanted to find out from you if you were part of him or you'll be here. And you opted to be there. And you have taken that oath. So be there.
Chairman, like my colleague OPK Riley said, I am a member of the committee, and we are speaking to an audit report. But I heard my colleague reading from a report from the company that we are discussing, a report to him alone, and not to all the members of the committee. If you have a copy, I, as a member, I do not have a copy. Please, I'm coming. I think that there were recommendations by the auditors who audited the ministries. and they recommended that an amount of $6 million should be retrieved from the said company. We are speaking to the report. My colleague, I was expecting him to ask the auditors what were their point of references when they were conducting that audit. He chose to ignore, and he spoke to a document before him. And he was asking questions or reading to the minister from document that is only presented to him alone. And I don't know where he got the document from.
Honorable member.
Which, Mr. Chairman, please, if you can allow me to land. I appeared here.
Yeah.
I represented my minister.
Right now.
And you gave a specific instructions that the chief director, the finance director, and the company, you want them here. You didn't tell me that the company should write to the committee. You said the chief director, the finance director, and the company involved, you wanted them here. I am surprised that I am here to assist my minister, and my colleague is actually reading from a report purported to be coming from the company. And so when you do that, and the auditors are sitting here, I seem to be lost. So I don't know which one we are speaking to.
Honorable member, a very good standing member of the committee. I made a pronouncement before you started. We are going by the Auditor General's report. So whatever that company has written or not, we are going through Auditor General's report. And as the minister said, he has consulted the Attorney General to advise on it. So that's where we are going. So Attorney General will advise on it, and then we'll go by what the Auditor Generals have said. So what he read is not part of the report.
Whatever we discuss here is being captured by the Hansard, and I believe that that will be part of the report that will be prepared by the committee.
Honorable member, that's the way we are going. We are going by the Auditor General's report.
Mr. Chair, the truth of the matter is that this committee wrote a letter to the companies in question. In fact, we've written letters to Libara, we've written letters to Smart Infraco. First was for them to appear before this committee, and they gave us a detailed response, and this came from Smart Infraco because, I mean, like we all said, the initial contract was between the state and Libara, but later it was novated to Smart Infraco, and they are those handling the thing now. So whatever I am referring to are responses that are before this committee. Yes, you may ask for copies of that. These documents came on Friday. These documents came to this committee on Friday. And the only thing that you needed to do as a member was to ask your leader, ask me that you want copies, and I'll make them available to you. But you can't be in these two shoes. You have sworn an oath to be a member of the ministry, and now you are challenging on a committee works. I don't think it is proper. I mean, nothing untoward has happened, and what we seek to do is to find out the truth and how we are able to save the state money. That is all we are interested in this committee. Thank you very much.
Honorable members, honorable members, I have ruled on it. We are going by what the Auditor General has given us. And if we have any issues, the ministry has any issues, you are going through the Attorney General. Let it say the way that it is. Yes, Honorable Minister.
Chairman, just to announce that per the request that came, I have forwarded to yourself, the chair and the deputy vice chair, the original contract, the first addendum and the second addendum. I've sent them electronically to you. I would be grateful if you can confirm receipt of same.
Yes, I can confirm receipts of those reports. And I think it's the same contracts that Smart Infraco and the others sent to us when they responded to it. But it's just a word of advice. Usually, when you are out with your minister and your minister speaks, that is final. This is just a word of advice, because I have also been where I have been a deputy minister, and usually when we go out and your minister speaks, it is final. This is just a word of advice. And I think you spoke to us clearly. You said you were going to carry out A, B, C, and D. The chairperson for this sitting ruled and said, for us, we are following the Auditor General's report, so that irrespective of what has been said here, it is the Auditor General's report that we are following. I also made I agreed with you on certain portions of it that clearly, for me, I'm not comfortable with the whole costs being applied to the way to the revenue the way it was done. So I also agree with you that we should validate the costs and then come out with the actual that truly they owe the states or whatever it is, and then we can make progress and move forward. That should have been the end of the discussion. So, Minister, thank you very much. Just a word of advice. We've been there.
Okay, let's make progress. Let's go to the next infraction. It's on paragraph 1471, and OPK will handle that one.
And this has to do with some unsupported payment to Smart Infraco, 6,755,175 Ghana cedis. Minister, December 20th, 2023, your ministry paid 6,755,174.94 to Smart Infraco Limited for a connectivity platform. The issues the auditors have with this payment is that there were no supporting documents, no evidence of services rendered, no certificate of work done, and no expenditure justification. Are you able to tell this committee if what your response is on this infraction, and we can take it from.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just so that the records bear this out, this did not happen under Sam George, but at the ministry, yes, by my predecessor. In 2023, this happened in 2023, just so that the records bear us out clear, because we won't superintend over such action. But we have followed up. We've followed up, and NITA, which is the implementing agency on this project, has been asked to submit all the documentation on the project. They've submitted a closure of project report to us. The letter by which they send that to us is NITA/MOCD/VAS/20/12/22. And that was dated 22nd December 2020. We've sent it to the audit services for verification. I don't know if they received it and what the status of that is, but NITA has provided us some documentation relative to that payment. Again, bear in mind that NITA is under new management, and so whatever they've been able to retrieve, we forwarded to the audit service pending their verification. If they verify the amount, then I believe that will bring closure to it. But if they raise queries on it, then we'll need to further dig into that matter.
Auditors, are you able to confirm whether or not you received documentations to the effect of these payments?
Honorable Chair, will be pleased if they have it here, they provide the documents to us, because we don't have it now at the moment.
The minister is is a digitized man, so he can send you soft copy. This one you have a hard copy.
Again, if they want us to provide them a soft copy, a digital copy, we can. But I also have a physical hard copy here, which I can table before the committee for the review of the auditors. But then it has to be authenticated and verified. But this is what we've received, and we have a copy here.
Thank you. I keep on referring to the response that Smart Infraco gave us. Probably maybe we should make copies available to you, so that at least we are able to reconcile and get there. Because in their response, they deny this payment. They deny that these payments were made to them, but they claim that they could justify for the payment. No, I'm coming. They also claim that the Auditor General's report miscalculated or misclassified the payment, arguing that it was not part of the e-government infrastructure commercialization contract, but rather a different project altogether. And so we will share with you their response. We'll share with the auditors their response so that we can reconcile and have a certain agreement with respect to this, so that we know what the real challenge is. What is it that if we have to make any reference to the Auditor General, to the Attorney General, what is it specifically that we are doing? Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, I'm guided and I'm grateful to get a copy of the responses. However, I just want to make the point clear. My fidelity is to the state.